Today's video will discuss recent domestic violence in the Houston area. Okay, I'm on abc13.com reading an article about a man who was convicted of stabbing his ex-wife back in 1984, and he was just recently sentenced to 60 years for killing his girlfriend in 2019. So just this headline alone, I can tell a lot of things. He has a history of violence. He's not on his first relationship. Not in 2019, about 4 years ago, he killed his girlfriend, and now he was just recently sentenced to 60 years. Given the fact that he even had a wife back in 1984 and getting a 60-year sentence in 2023, that's pretty much a life sentence for him. Okay. This was published March 2023. Houston, Texas. A man previously convicted of stabbing his ex-wife in 1984 will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars for stabbing his girlfriend to death nearly 4 years ago. Here's the original article from 2019. The Harris County District Attorney's Office said 64-year-old Kenneth Howard was sentenced to 60 years in prison for the murder of his girlfriend. So that would put him in prison until he's like over 140. So this is definitely a life sentence. Howard was convicted on Monday for killing 37-year-old Pamela Pratt back in 2019. So, yeah, she was 37 years old at the time. It was 4 years ago. So he was 61. So there is a big age difference in the parties. I don't think that's really a factor in domestic violence situations. But one thing I do notice is one thing I look for is like uneven power. And if he's much older and she's much younger, then maybe there's a disparity there. But we don't know. We don't know if he was employed. We don't know if he had assets and money or anything like that. So there's a few unknowns here. Okay, this is a tweet from July 2019. I'm a little sad that only got 2 replies and 2 hearts. Again, these very serious cases are not getting the attention it deserves. So Pratt, she was a mother of 3 who was in a relationship with Howard. We don't know if they were children of the relationship or from a previous relationship, but he convinced her to move down here from Dallas to Houston. During their relationship, the DA's office says Howard had shot at Pratt's 18-year-old son and was on bond for that charge when he committed the murder. So it was her son, and he had asked her to bring the family down from Dallas. And it's not uncommon for there to be tension between, the children and the mom's new boyfriend. So it's really sad that here he said that he had shot at him. So aggravated assault, maybe attempted murder. And then he ended up killing the poor son's mother. Howard also had a history of domestic violence dating back to 1984 when he was convicted of stabbing his ex-wife 7 times. In July 2019, Howard was reportedly driving Pratt when the two got into an argument about her leaving him to go back to Dallas. So, okay, that is key. That is a big red flag in my world. She was trying to leave him and go back to Dallas. And that's when there was the argument. So that's the most dangerous time for victims, is when they're trying to leave the abuser. That's a pattern in these back-to-back murder suicides in the Houston area, domestic violence situations. It's usually the most dangerous time for the victim is when they're trying to flee. So she had suggested leaving him, and that was enough for him to commit this crime. So he allegedly stabbed her at least 4 times in the chest and neck, and then he failed to take her to the hospital. He drove around for at least an hour before he went home and called police. So it looks like he turned himself in. He apparently had stabbed her, did not take her to the hospital, and then he fled for only an hour. So it's not going to help him if he's going to try to prove or try to argue that he's innocent. He's going to have a hard time making that argument if he had fled. But then he thought about it, and then he called police. So he allegedly told officers that she pulled the knife on him, but later admitted that he got the knife away from her and stabbed her. All right, that's maybe he's arguing self-defense, but I think that's going to be very difficult. The most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when they are trying to leave the relationship. That was a quote from Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. That is exactly why we are taking any and all allegations of domestic violence so seriously. Okay, a little quick blurb. If you need help getting out of a domestic violence situation, call the Houston Area Women's Center 24/7 hotline at 713-528-2121 or call AVDA at 713-224-9911. And you can also click here to chat with an advocate. And there's also an option if you're, deaf or hard of hearing. So let's click on that. Okay, so this is the Houston Area Women's Center live chat. It explains, that what you're doing is not very easy and offers confidential one-on-one. So you just, I guess, click there and it gives you an option. You can fill out this form before you talk to before you start the live chat with the counselor. So that's really exciting. I'm really happy to see that. And also there's a little button, little button right here in case, so you can safely exit. And I do not think it's going to save in your browser history. So that's a really cool option they have there. Okay, let's take a look at that 2019 article. So police find woman stabbed to death after man reportedly called 911 to say he killed her. So that was July 2019. This is what this is the original ABC 13 article. Officers in Northeast Houston are investigating the death of a woman whose body was found in an SUV. Vehicle was parked in the 4100 block of Sayers. Pamela Pratt, 38, was found in the passenger seat. Officer told ABC 13 that the woman was stabbed to death and that one man was taken into custody. Police said he was in the driver's seat. Dispatchers heard on the radio saying, "Man just called and says he just killed his fiancé. He stabbed her. He says he is on his way back to Sayers. He is a few blocks away." So he went back to the scene of the crime and turned himself into the police officers. Pratt's son told ABC 13's Courtney Fisher that his mom knew her fiancé close to a year and that they never had any problems. Okay, that's interesting because in the 2023 article, it says he was out on bond for shooting at her son. So some of the statements from 4 years ago are not 100% consistent with today, but then again, a lot of things have happened. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, so now I want to walk it through the domestic violence power and control wheel. So you can go to Google, go to my website, chrismarlawfirm.com. You see that little bad boy YouTube. Throw me a bone if you don't mind and hit the subscribe button. Okay, so we're going to go to my articles. A lot of great articles. Again, let's visit that power and control wheel. All right, I want to introduce you to this what's called the power and control wheel. Many survivors of domestic abuse and violence will say that the first time they saw the power and control wheel, what they were going through suddenly made sense. This visual aid used by advocates, psychologists, educators, healthcare workers, and similar outline the common tactics used by abusers. And you can download a copy of the power and control wheel from my website. Okay, so here's the power and control wheel. Intimidation, let's first start. At the center of domestic violence is always power and control. It's the aggressor's desire to have power and control over the victim. That's long established. Now, every once in a while, there could be other reasons why someone would want to commit, domestic violence, but the most typical reason is power and control. So let's walk it through the power and control wheel. All right, so we start with the outer ring. That's the physical and sexual violence. So it's the most objective, most easy to prove. The gray area in the middle, like the intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, minimizing, denying, blame, using children, economic abuse, male privilege, coercion, and threats, all that stuff. That's kind of in the gray area, the gray ring, because it is a gray area. It's more like the psychological aspects of domestic violence. Not always... The gray area doesn't always leave a bruise, whereas in the outer ring, the black and white ring, that the physical and sexual violence, those are easier to prove. There's usually markings and more evidence. So let's look at intimidation. He was definitely intimidating her. Displaying weapons, he shot. He had a knife. He stabbed her. So he was making her afraid, did not want her to leave and go back to Dallas. So intimidation made her afraid. Emotional abuse. I don't know if we have enough information about, other than the fact that they were arguing. He was making her feel bad about herself, intimidating her, just emotionally abusing her, wanting her to stay in the relationship. Isolation, he did not want her to leave him because if she leaves him, then he can't control what she does or who she sees and talks to or where she goes. It's hard to control her outside involvement if she leaves. So isolation, definitely. Minimizing, denying, and blaming. I don't think we have enough information to using children. Now, she did have children. It's possible he was making her feel bad about the situation with the children and using the kids as reasons for her to stay. If they weren't his kids, I don't think he'd really have much standing to threaten to take the children away from her. Economic abuse. I'm sure money was a big factor in a lot of their arguments. Male privilege, I do not know, other than the fact that he was possibly trying to define the roles in the relationship, like he's the man, he's in charge, and she's going to be the servant. Maybe. Coercion and threats, I'm sure he threatened her. He had maybe had threatened his wife back in 1984 before he stabbed her, and then it escalated to physical violence. But here maybe he did threaten her with a knife, and then it led up to actually carrying out that threat. So I would argue yes to coercion and threats, but again, we don't have all the information. Okay, all in all, I believe there's lots of evidence that domestic violence was taking place. I believe power and control was a huge factor in what had happened leading up to the violence in both situations, and he was just not able to keep power and control over his victim, and unfortunately something very sad happened. And again, back to what the district attorney had said in the 2023 article. Let me quote, "The most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when they are trying to leave the relationship. That is direct quote from Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. This is a great article. I encourage you to click on it, check it out, help ABC 13 out, give them some clicks, click on their sponsors. A lot of great content here. Hope you enjoyed it. And please follow me for more great content.